You know
What's going on, man?
I'm a little
just playing Starfire.
Nice to meet you.
And, I'm a simple guy, and I live my life by really simple means, you know what I mean? And, I live by simple mottos and credos and phrases and everything, because it works for me, you know what I mean? Lately, I've adopted a new
Starfire, and this here is the best Just to Be Frank podcast. I want to thank you ever so much for joining me. Doing a little bit different up in the studio today because I'm still working out the logistics of how to work out the studio when I have a guest like I do today. Today, I got my boy Bill Willingham in here with me, ladies and gentlemen. You know what I'm saying? He's a military veteran, so please say your thanks. You know what I'm saying? Well, appreciate you for being here, good brother.
Thanks for having me.
Word up, man. Now, and I like that you wore the America since 1776 shirt. We the people. So, just in case, okay, so the reason I have Bill on is because a lot of times we don't get to have the difficult questions with people other than people that we normally interact with. You know what I'm saying? Or people that we know. You know, there's a genuine, I think there's a genuine fear involved in people trying to have these conversations, which can be difficult if you're not of a certain level of mentality, of intellect, of spirit. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to be really comfortable within yourself to be able to have these types of things. You know what I'm saying? So now, most of you would probably classify me as a liberal. I hate that label.
I hate labels too.
I am not that at all. You know what I'm saying? I am not a Republican or a Democrat. I am registered here in the great state of Pennsylvania as unaffiliated.
Yep.
Although I did just sign up to look more into the 420 party, which is Red Man's new political party. It's an actual political party.
Which I think a lot of people don't realize that this country was never founded on a two-party system, and that we've been steadily brainwashed to think that, oh, you're either Republican or Democrat or you're wrong. I'm registered as an independent, but I'm not a big label fan. I don't like to say, but like what I see myself as is more of like a conservative libertarian.
Right.
Because libertarians are just the people who say, hey, the government has these 3-4 responsibilities, stick to that, the people do their own thing.
Right.
And let everything be more of a state by state.
Do your job.
Correct.
Right.
State by state instead of it being big federal government. Mm-hmm. Because clearly that doesn't work, because it's never worked. But
no, it never has. Ironically, I watched Hamilton last night. Dope fucking joint. Love that. Really good. It's actually really good. I can't even lie. It was really dope. But I did learn a bit of that history from that as well, you know. And I look at it in a way where, you know, the two-party system, I mean, let's be honest here, in a country where there's, 8 billion people, rather?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of people.
To think that there are only two good ways to run anything, it's kind of false. Like, that's just...
Exactly.
That doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? But...
a lot of people don't realize, too, is... So, like, I always like to go back to look... Because you want to look at the Founding Fathers, right? And the aspect that... If you look at their political views and their ideals and their ideologies, they were libertarian. They weren't Republican or Democrat. George Washington even specifically said that we need to stay away from political parties. It can literally, it'll be what destroys the country. It'll tear us apart. And it's steadily what's happening now.
Gee, how fortuitous he thought of these things. You know what I'm saying?
I think that back in the late 1700s that you have people making predictions that, you know, literally nail on the head.
I mean, but think about it. They had to foresee this happening.
At some point,
you know what I'm saying?
I feel like...
But what did they not foresee? Did they not foresee slavery ever ending?
No, so...
Did they not perceive the Midwest getting tamer? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
so, when it comes to slavery, you can actually go back and look at the Founding Fathers, and...
Several of them owned slaves.
They did, but almost all of them who signed the Declaration were very anti-slave.
Right,
And Benjamin Franklin never owned a slave, and he thought it was the most moral evil that's ever existed in the world.
It was.
It was, agreed. George Washington, who owned slaves, realistic. You can actually look back, see how they were treated. They were treated very similar to like almost modern day butlers and
right.
Which again, still not okay.
I mean, look, I always put it in the context of this. Now, I know for a fact that I am a product of slavery, but I also know that, or I guess on the plantation where my ancestors were, the owner was a lot more lenient to the idea that, okay, one of his daughters fell in love with one of the slaves and they were married, and like, so I don't exist without that. So obviously, while it is indeed still bondage, we can't gloss over the idea that there were maybe 2% of them that were not complete pieces of shit in there in that regard.
I think you could even probably, like, if you really wanted to go like in depth in all of their lives, I think you could probably even increase that percentage. Like, you've had many people who were against slavery up in the North who fought drastically for the rights of the slaves to make sure they were treated properly, because they still did see them as human beings. But just unfortunately at the time, you know, they weren't given the same rights, which...
I mean, it was written into the Constitution that they would not be full human beings.
Well, like, there is nowhere in the Constitution does it say race, creed, or color.
That would be the 3/5 compromise.
But if it doesn't specifically state color, you can't say...
I mean, that's specific. They did it so that we would, if you really think about it, you can gloss over and say, oh, they didn't say specifically, or we can just read between the lines. And if you read between the lines, it's clear as day. Yo, that meant I'm not a full human being. Women are not full human beings. You know what I'm saying? That the Constitution was technically written for white male criminals.
I disagree.
And I only say criminals because technically they were traitors to their country, so they were criminals.
Well, I mean,
I'm not saying they were wrong for it. Listen, I know a lot of criminals in my time, and I know a lot of people, and I am firmly of the belief that not every criminal is a bad person, and not every bad person is a criminal.
Right.
So I get that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that they were wrong for what they did. Shit, they founded a country. They founded a country based on, you know, when other people were already here, but that's something else entirely.
It's true. I mean, I think there's a lot of like misconceptions too about when we did find the country. Like, so we did something when people came to the United States originally, and we killed a lot of Native Americans. But it wasn't, most of the Native Americans that died to our hands weren't necessarily our fault.
Well, I mean, I know the Comanches, the Comanches that out west, like which had Mexico, they wouldn't let anybody pass. They would just kill them all. Like,
but even the ones on the East Coast, like, think about it.
I think it was a Lenape, or maybe
there were so many different tribes, but we were bringing diseases over from Europe over, and that was actually one of the main killers of most Native Americans at the time.
And on the islands as well. You know, the immune systems are just vastly different.
They're different. This stuff that they've never experienced in their time. And it was bound to happen because, especially in that time, they had no understanding, true understanding of.
I mean, we had diseases they had to have had diseases.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? But not to that degree because they had never interacted with this type of person before. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, you can't place so much blame, but you also have to be cognizant of the idea that, that did happen, and had y'all been a little bit more civilized about shit, it could have worked a little different. And I get it. These were troublesome times. You know
absolutely.
And to try and put everything that happened back there into full context, the only way we can is based on the stories that have been passed down. You know what I'm saying? But what I also find is that some ancestors pass one story down, and some ancestors pass another story down. You know what I'm saying? Now, which means that somewhere in the middle is going to be the truth.
Right, and that's a really good point, because that's how, especially with today, with how we look at like our statistics and how we look at things. You can go to more of a conservative viewpoint, get a statistic. You go to a liberal, and they're
always going to clash.
One of my favorite things is when how like one's worded one way and the other one's worded a different way to make them like
they're basically fucking homonyms and shit.
Yeah, like they both. It's really funny when you can find statistics where both sides agree, but the thing is the way they want to word it. So one side will make, you know, this group of people look horrible, where this side makes another group of people look horrible, look like heroes, and it's just, I just read it, I'm just like, wow.
Well, but then again,
come on, guys.
But then, all right, but that leads into something where I say, all right, so let's decolonize the school curriculums. and let's actually make one basic universal school curriculum. You know what I'm saying? Why
easiest?
What, like, think about it like this. Why is it that I'm taught one thing in New York, but people in Texas are taught something else?
Agreed.
You know what I'm saying? That doesn't make any sense.
So, I think one of the best ways to fix the school system currently
teachers unions?
Kill teachers unions.
Kill police unions, too.
Agreed.
Get rid of those types of unions, yes.
The only type of union that I truly support.
Steel workers, baby.
Steel workers.
Sheet metal workers, like my brother.
Electricians, like people like that. Why? Because the union helps them find a job. But when they get to the job, if they don't do a good job, guess what? See you later.
You're gone, right.
Military has unions, right? Because we have civilian workers. So I've worked with civilians who were just horrible. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing I can do about it. Like, they come late to work every single day. I work medical.
Right.
I had a lady who, while I was in the middle of working, or she was in the middle of helping a doctor with a surgery, simple, nothing like super exotic here, but like, lunch bell hits, gloves off, leaves. Middle. And I'm not even back there yet. Like, I mean, I'm looking to make sure you need something. She bails. Do you think she got fired?
No, of course not.
Absolutely not. Now, do that in, like, a private practice.
Oh, yeah.
See you later. You're gone that second.
Yeah.
Gone. Get out.
Yeah. And I think that's the large part of the problem with the police unions, with teachers unions. They keep you with a job even if you're terrible at your
Correct.
job.
And we can probably both agree that, a majority of teachers are amazing.
Oh, yeah.
A majority of police officers are good police officers. There are going to be bad ones no matter what, especially if you give a system to where they can be protected.
Right. But you take away qualified immunity and make any judgments have to come out of their pension, then I guarantee you'll see a decrease.
I think, everybody, especially right now, you see on the news where it's all more of, defund.
Which makes no sense.
We need to put more money into
more funding, but the funding needs to go into things that actually help. You know what I'm saying? And training. Period. Boy, training.
I mean, a lot of the numbers too you look at right now, though, like, I agree. No matter what, right? Anytime somebody's going to be operating a firearm, training needs to be a must. Right. Any type, whether it's lethal, non-lethal, you need to be properly trained on how to use it. Statistically, if we look at, like, killings recently, right? You can go from, what was it, in 2020, I think there was like 537 people were killed by inserting things into their rectum. Okay? Now, people say to me, like, Bill, why is that an important statistic?
Well, because
from 2015, over the past 5 years, that is less people than were killed with AR-15s, right?
Well, the AR-15 has this bad rap because it looks scary.
It does.
It's not actually an assault rifle.
Correct. AR is Armalite, is the company that makes it.
That's the name of the company.
Correct.
Armalite. And that's all it is. The AR-15 is not an assault rifle because while you can do things to allow it to become sort of that, you have to buy and equip it to do
that.
You
have to drill. You see the memes. Drill a third hole.
Right.
So you can make it like a burst or a fully automatic weapon. Like, and even then, you haven't been able to own a fully automatic weapon in the United States for years.
Since like the early 90s.
Yeah.
Late 80s, early 90s.
On my point of view, kind of BS. But everyone,
Well, I mean, alright, so my thing on guns has always been, if you're gonna use something for hunting, I'm not wrong with that. If you just enjoy the sporting of the shooting, I have no problem with that. But I guess I don't see why something, like, a gun is a tool.
Correct.
Okay? And like any tool, if I take a hammer and use it incorrectly, I can fucking hammer my hand or fuck myself up. If I take a saw and use it incorrectly, I can saw my hand off. A gun is a tool, so if I use it incorrectly, I can hurt myself or others.
Correct.
People don't look at it that way.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? It needs to be utilized in the way that it is, but it is the tool whose only specific usage is to kill. You know what I'm saying?
Agreed.
There's no other usage for a gun. Like, there's none. Like, it doesn't have another functionality to it where you could be like, I can dig a trench with it. I mean, you probably could.
Yeah.
But do you want to?
No. It's more efficient.
I'm saying. That's what they make that spade joint. It cut holes.
So, the way I look at, especially any type of firearm ownership. So, being a libertarian, I have the very drastic idea. Well, people say it's drastic, but if the government and military can own it, the people should be allowed to own it.
I have the exact opposite idea. If the government and military are using it, chances are people in the neighborhood shouldn't probably be using it.
The reason why I believe that, though, is because, remember, the Second Amendment wasn't made for hunting.
No, the Second Amendment, it was made to form a militia to overthrow a tyrannical government.
It was to be able to defend ourselves from a tyrannical government, because our founding fathers did know that, hey, this happened once.
It could happen.
It could happen again. There's a reason why the First Amendment's where it is and the Second Amendment's right after.
That's right.
So, I do truly believe that if everyone in their mouth, if the government's allowed to use this and the government becomes tyrannical, and they say, oh, you can only have 5 rounds in this magazine, and you can't have anything that's fully automatic, and now you can only have this.
Right.
They're making it way more complicated for us to defend ourselves. Right. We absolutely have to.
Because they still have access to the entire.
Exactly.
Now that's an argument I can understand.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm not saying like, oh, I want to go buy a 240 Bravo with 100-round drum just because. Let's go.
Ooh.
Let's just do crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Granted.
I don't even
the Second Amendment, if I want to go do that, I should be allowed.
I should be allowed, yes.
But I would never go that drastic.
But I could also go buy body armor. I can also,
Agreed.
You know what I'm saying? I should be able to do tactical training with my family, within my neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? But if you look at most inner cities, where most of my people congregate, strictest fucking gun laws on the planet. You can't have no guns in those neighborhoods.
But think about it.
So how do we overthrow a tyrannical government?
That's the problem right now, though. Is you look at those inner cities. They have the worst gun control. They have the worst gun problems in the country.
Right.
And they have the strictest gun control.
Right.
So clearly, strict gun control cannot.
Because the truth is, I look it up here. Now, I'm from Queens, New York. We were not allowed to have guns. Period. Point blank. But I moved up here, and I know people whose dad gave them their first gun at 3 years old, a little pop gun, you know what I'm saying, air rifle, and then you move up, you get a little 22 rifle when you're 10, and then you move up, but you're learning the whole time. You're learning how to use it, you're learning not to point it at anybody. The first time you pop yourself in the ass with a BB, or pop somebody with a BB, you know not to shoot somebody by accident.
Muzzle awareness is one of the first things you're taught. So, even though I grew up in this area, my father owned firearms, my grandfather did. Both my grandfathers were in the Army. My dad was a Marine. I never expressed interest in hunting, so I never really handled a firearm before then. But even though I never handled one, my grandfather still took the time away to say, hey, this is how you properly handle it, right? Make sure the muzzle's always at the ground. Never point at it. Unless you intend to shoot something, that is when the muzzle points at that person. Right. And when I went to join the military and I went to basic and was trained to use a firearm, it was kind of the same idea.
Second nature, it's muzzle down,
muzzle awareness, and still, people don't realize, that's why when you see a lot of, anytime somebody gets shot by a police officer, that whether it looks like they have a gun, they're not sure. These people are making split-second decisions, and the gun goes up. Somebody's going to get shot. So, and it sucks whether it's
But now, let's be honest here. How often in the last several years has it actually been a firearm and the people got shot anyway? And I can take you all the way back to Amadou Diallo back in '96. Shot 41 times because he reached for his wallet to show them his ID that he lived there.
So, and this is where the training thing comes in.
Right.
So, a crazy statistic. Within the past, I want to say since 2016, police officers shooting unarmed black individuals has decreased by 75%.
Oh, I'm sure it's decreased, but we are seeing the ones that we're seeing.
Correct. And I think that goes a lot to media, though.
Certainly. Because social media, number one.
Oh, absolutely.
But that's not to say that that's a good or a bad thing. The truth is, yes, we're seeing them. You know what I'm saying? But then you have a case like George Zimmerman, who the police officer told him, don't follow this young man, and he did anyway.
Yep.
And then he murdered this young man.
Yes.
And then he got off. Because it'll stand your ground laws, which I completely think are abhorrent laws, and they're literally just targeted measure for ways for people to just kill black people. It just works out that way because we can't use stand your ground laws because nobody's afraid. Everybody's afraid of us, but we're not allowed to be afraid.
See, I think
you understand?
I do, and I think that comes from a lot of the way the media is portraying black individuals, right?
Oh, sure.
Because if you look at CNN, oh my God, I can't remember what his name is.
Chuck Todd?
No, the former guy who was in charge of CNN specifically was recorded saying that it's not that we don't want to have black people on CNN, it's that we want specific black people on CNN. They want to create a narrative, they want to create an idea of like...
But that's why Candace Owens is on Fox News.
Well, Candace Owens tends, from the way she speaks and the way a lot of her ideas, she definitely does have a lot of conservative views, but I think she definitely is very libertarian.
I don't think she understands what libertarian means.
I think she's a very intelligent woman, honestly.
I think she can tell you very articulately how stupid she actually is. And my thing is, because for me it's like this. She doesn't represent people of African descent in this country. And the reason she doesn't is because she's not from where we're from. She is from Stamford, Connecticut, or somewhere up there. And if there is one place in the world who does not have a ghetto, it is Stamford, Connecticut. But
my issue with that is that
what I'm saying is she's removed from our struggle. She doesn't know what it is to struggle.
But is she removed from that because she chose to?
No, or that's where she was raised.
By who?
Her parents.
Which are?
Black.
So how'd they get there?
That's where they moved.
Why?
And because that's where they wanted to be.
Exactly.
But what I'm saying is she can't prop herself up as a champion of us if she doesn't know where we come from.
But Candace Owens is within the majority of the black community where she was raised in a single parenthood, right? She just had her mother. She didn't have her father.
That's fine.
Nobody in her family went to college or even graduated high school. She was the first one to graduate high school, first one to graduate college. She made decisions as an individual. It doesn't matter if she's black, white, Asian, purple, green, yellow. She made decisions to put herself in the position that she is today.
And I'm not saying that she's wrong for that, but what I'm saying is she can't represent people she doesn't know anything about. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not going to champion a cause that I don't know the facts.
Right, but then I think you could also use the same argument that LeBron is a horrible champion because even though he has a huge platform where he could talk on, he's very uneducated in the things that he is talking about.
In what regards?
And as in, he said that he read the Malcolm X autobiography, right? But is a champion and supports liberal ideas and agendas. But Malcolm X was very, very hatred against liberals and their ideas. He hated liberals because he knew that they were going to say nice, sweet things to you.
And then stab you in the back. Right. But he wasn't a fan of conservatism either. Like, he was somebody, and mind you, I am a huge fan of Minister Farrakhan and Elijah Muhammad. I don't always agree with everything they say, but I'm also a fan of, like, Ben Shapiro.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't agree with everything he says, but I like the guy.
And I think that's where we usually agree on a lot of time, is that it's not our responsibility to 100% agree with everyone.
No.
We need to, when it comes time to vote, you're going to vote for who you think's the best. I'm going to vote for who I think's the best. The problem is that we're going to lose only because people are going to go vote for, this guy's blue, this guy's red.
And that's why we always lose. The intelligent people always seem to get shafted.
It's how it works. why would the smart people who are talking and saying, like, hey, guys, this isn't working. Maybe we should try something new. No, let's try for the 400th time. Maybe it'll work.
Yeah, maybe it'll work this time. Like, no, it won't. But okay, whatever. Like, look, I'm not a fan of Joe Biden's politics.
Right. Like, I'm trying to think. There was one or two policies that Joe Biden had that when everybody was running, when we were going through the debates and stuff, and I always try to see who's going to be on the ballot. Which we had this past election cycle. We had Biden, Trump, and we had Jo Jorgensen. And I love Dr. Jo Jorgensen. Do I agree with her on everything?
No,
but
I thought she was the best qualified candidate.
I agreed with her on more things than I agreed with Biden or Trump on.
Right.
So I'm like, I'm going to vote for her.
Right.
And here's one of my other big issues: is where was feminism with that? Where were all the feminists supporting and championing a woman running to be president instead they were supporting Joe Biden,
with Warren, or Hillary?
Yeah, they're supporting people who just you could have someone who could be the president,
right?
And you're like, nah.
We don't know enough. She don't have a news agency backing her up, so we don't want her.
We're going to support Joe Biden because Kamala Harris is going to be his VP, so we'd rather a woman be a vice president. I'm like, but you could have one be a president.
You have one be the president, yeah.
I'm like, isn't that better?
But see, feminism in and of itself, and I'm fairly certain that I'd be classified as a feminist, but I think feminism isn't always the best thing either.
Modern day feminism is a horrible thing.
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to we get back to the labels. Once you start labeling shit with like labels like, oh, this is right wing conservatism, this is democratic socialism, and don't you dare say this scary S word. Oh my God, you'll scare people.
Yeah, it is a scary S word.
Oh my God, and yet your police officers, that's a socialist product. Your firefighters, that's a socialist product. Your Medicare, Medicaid, your military, those are socialist products.
But most of those things are needed, though. Like you need firefighters, you need police officers, you need a military.
Okay, now here's the thing. Now I'm weird about that. My thought, I'm not a pacifist by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm also of the opinion that if you have a military, that means you're gonna have conflict.
Switzerland.
Do they have a military?
They do.
Do they really?
And
they are super neutral.
They are the most neutral. They're not involved.
Not involved. We good.
They literally just.
I know. We're on it.
But we could really use it. No. Not going to be here.
No.
Now, granted, I think one of the big issues when it comes to the United States and its military, and people always complain about how much we spend on military. Which is a lot, but I mean, when we're protecting literally all of Europe, since England doesn't have any responsibilities.
But why do we do that? This is what I'm saying.
Exactly.
Like, why are we doing that?
This is the libertarian point of view, saying like, hey, that's your problem.
That's your problem. But
we're gonna chill over here.
But I don't think anybody should be. Nobody should be pointing nukes at each other.
Agreed. I think the big issue right now with that is that the United States, whether we believe it or not as a people or as a political body, believe in more fact that we kind of waited a little too long to get involved with World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of
can't let that happen again.
I think that's one of the ideas. I think that sometimes now that we put people in charge that also feel like, well, our government structure works really well here. Let's go try it somewhere else. That's not our responsibility.
It's not smart.
Like the Middle East, they've been killing themselves for hundreds of thousands of years. And us being there isn't making any better or any worse. No. Just the fact that I have friends and family, like not really any family anymore, but friends who are still over there, still having to deal with the BS.
I've had friends who were over there, and hats off to them. Again, I'm not a pacifist, and I'm a realist. I get that there is a necessity for it. I just wish there weren't.
Agreed.
You know what I'm saying?
Agreed. I wish that. At the end of the day, I do truly wish that everybody could just get along and we can high-five each other. Now, I'm not a fan of, globalism. Like, I think we should have borders.
What does that mean exactly? What exactly is a globalist? I keep hearing people talk about this globalist conspiracy. They're trying to make everybody globalist in one world. And
globalism is no borders.
Is that a good thing?
No.
Why?
Because we're not all one people. We're all different.
I mean, that's true.
And we're always going to be different. There's only one country in the world where everybody who's different is the same, and that's the United States of America. And it's because we're not, one of the terms I hate the most is the term African American.
Me too.
Because if you were born in the United States of America,
you're American.
You're American. And now, I think it was Al Sharpton that created the term.
Jesse Jackson
created the term African American, which, what does that do?
It was a way to appease his
correct
masters.
But I think what it does now, though, is it slowly strips away your Americanness. Because now you are, you're actually from there.
Well then, but I also look at it from this perspective, right? So, during slavery, we all of our history was taken away from us. So, we don't know where we come from. You could probably go to Ellis Island and see where your ancestors came over and we don't have that.
Right.
Privilege. And when people talk about white privilege, they mean, a lot of people mean things like that. Like, that's a privilege you as white people have that you can do that we do not have. There's nowhere we can go to be able to see where our ancestors came over loud and proud and was like, yes, I'm coming to the American dream. That is a white privilege.
I can understand. I guess I can understand because I'm not a big fan of the term white privilege.
I'm not either, but I understand that it is indeed a thing. You know what I'm saying? Because that's, again, if you look at it just from the perspective of that is a privilege that you have that we do not have.
Because, I mean, if people are being transported from the United States, like if we're going to go back to when slaves are being transported to the U.S.
1619.
There's definitely...
well, before that,
but no matter what, there is definitely... At some point, there had to have been a log of the amount of people that were trapped. And now, again,
well,
you're not going to have names and
Lloyd's
stuff
of
like
London would have that because the slaves were insured by them.
Correct.
So, even if they were thrown overboard to the sharks, the people still got paid for them.
Right.
So that's dehumanizing.
Agreed.
You know what I'm saying?
Agreed.
Like, these are the things we talk about when we talk about reparations, because people are afraid that when black people start talking about reparations, they mean like, yo, we're coming for your pockets. No, we're broke too. We don't want anything from you. You don't have anything.
The question I have more or less for reparations is that how do we determine how much somebody gets? If the history isn't there, right? Like if we can't track, how do we determine how much someone gets? How do we determine how are we 100% sure that this person genuinely is from Africa, came to the United States?
Well, I mean, the easiest way to do it would be to look at, first you got to go back through whatever records they might have had. You know what I mean? Because there are records.
Right, exactly.
But they're not of our history. They're of our bondage. You know what I'm saying? So you could go to, and of course, a simple DNA test could more than well confirm it. But most black people are afraid of things like that. You know what I'm saying? They're afraid of the vaccine for things like that.
I feel like
experiments and things like that.
I think a lot of people are afraid of the vaccine.
Well, but I also think like it should be from any company that started their business during the slave trade and is still operational today. So we're talking about Lloyd's of London, Citibank, Bank of America, Lehman Brothers. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Chase Bank, like basically all banks and basically anybody traded on the stock market since been pimping. You know what I'm saying? And that's who should be responsible for the repayment aspect of it. Now, as far as how to repair, you have to actually admit to the wrong, and that's something people don't want to do.
But I think one of the big issues and the reason why people don't want to do it is because the people who are currently in charge of those companies aren't responsible for it. Like, how many generations? Because unless it's literally the guy who owns, like, let's say, Citibank, is literally the great grandson.
I get the concept of that, but you know what? Your bank was started off of the backs of slavery. Therefore, you're culpable for it.
Would it
your company?
But there's a cop out.
That should be your insurance that should get hit for that.
But they can cop out.
How?
They can just tear it apart and rebuild it as something else.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you do. You are culpable.
Well, no, because
your company, whether you dissolve it, try and go bankrupt, whatever way you want to try to swindle it, you're on the hook for it because the company that you represent did it.
Which. Fair, but realistically, what would happen, and this is just from historically of how we've handled situations similar, they would dissolve the company and then rebuild a new company with a similar or different name, and now they're founded on the 2021.
Right.
Oh, well, we were founded in 2021. We never have any connection. And now all the reparation talk now is, well, they did it, and they're like, well, they were founded in 2021, and now there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, and that would be so illegal. That should sit like that. Should be illegal.
Should be.
That should be illegal.
That's why government's too big.
Government's too big.
And that's too much power.
That should be illegal.
Agreed.
What you just explained, no matter how I hear it, all I hear is, that's a crime.
Should be.
That's definitely a crime.
But there's and people would probably be like, no, Bill, that is illegal. People can't do that. But you're going to tell me that those super wealthy people aren't going to find a way with the fine print, because people do it all the time. Look at all the famous actors, actresses. You have anybody who's in a position, politicians who get away with questionable acts.
Oh, all the time.
Because
look at Matt Gaetz. Come on, man. That guy's weird, man.
But look at the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing.
Look at the whole Jeffrey Epstein shit.
He didn't kill himself. So
listen, I don't give a fuck what you say. That motherfucker did not kill himself. And if you look, y'all come for me, I'll tell you Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. If you believe he did, you're just dumb.
was it 2 different forensics?
Come on.
2 forensic doctors did an autopsy and both said, no, there's no way.
The higher bone don't break like that.
For some reason, the guards that were... So when I was in the Army, you have suicide watches, right? Because suicide's the #1 killer of veterans in the world. And that's one of the reasons why I'm wearing the shirt. It's the Valhalla Project. They try to end veteran suicide.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
So,
make sure we send a link up in the description for that.
So when a soldier, is trying to hurt themselves, you get put on suicide watch. You have to keep an eye on them.
Right.
There is never a situation... They're going to the bathroom, you go in with them. There is never a situation where someone doesn't physically have eyes on that person. Mm-hmm. So you're going to tell me in the whole Jeffrey Epstein situation, not only did his camera and his cell go offline, but then the 2 guards that were also responsible, who were probably watching the camera, both are like, yo, we just going to take some Z's real quick. Both of them are going to be like, yo, we're going to sleep real quick. He'll be fine for 45 minutes. Yeah, it's fine. And then, oh no, he's dead.
I'm crazy, not stupid. I'm not buying that.
I've never been. I'm one of the. I hate conspiracy theories.
I'm not. I like conspiracy theories to the idea that they're fun to think.
Yes, but I've never been like a follower, and I've been like, connecting the strings in my room, wrapping around pins. Like that's never been me.
I don't do that.
But now the more like the one positive thing from social media that I think we've had is that it is way harder for for people who are doing these things to hide those things.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the people who created social media didn't intend that initially.
No.
And now they're starting to... And they're like... That's why you see, like, Twitter being super hypercritical with what people say on Twitter.
Well, cancel culture is dumb.
Oh, it is so super
Cancel
dumb.
culture is dumb because you're not going to fucking tell me I'm wrong for some shit I said 5 years ago, 5 days ago, 5 minutes ago. Like, people change and evolve constantly.
Oh, yeah. So...
Cut that out. Like, that's dumb.
I have a family member who, before he joined the military, he joined the Navy. Before he joined the Navy, he was an avid user of some inappropriate racist language.
Oh,
okay, I won't use the exact words because I don't use those words.
Fair enough.
He's calling people niggas.
When he came out of the military, he has not said the word once ever again. I tell people all the time, like, I grew up in Pennsylvania, in a part of Pennsylvania where when I went to high school, when I graduated, when I was a senior, we had 2 black kids in the freshman class. Mm-hmm. That's it. Yeah. The rest was all white, maybe a couple of Asian kids thrown in there, but white. Yeah. Like 99% white. Right. So when I joined the military, and it's just a huge culture shock, right? Mm-hmm. Like, but I can honestly say without a doubt that I never once looked at somebody based off their skin color. I immediately judge everybody off their actions, their decisions, the way they chose to present themselves. And I got along with everybody without a problem. And I feel like that's 95 to 99% of America, is that we don't care who you are, what you believe. We're just happy that you're an American. It's the problem is that the 99% is now catering to the 1% of the people who are upset and hurt, and screw them.
And and then because like I always tell anybody, like, yes, there are racist people, but not every white person is racist. Just like not every black person is good for the culture. You know what I'm saying? Just like you're gonna find bad people in all walks of life. There are doctors who are douchebags.
Absolutely.
I
have a good example.
You know what I'm saying? There are businessmen who run $100,000 companies who are Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
So, like...
Well, think about it. So I have PTSD, so when I go to the VA, I have to go see a psychiatrist usually once a month, whenever they tell me I need to go.
Right.
So I used to go see this guy, and where I currently live, I don't have great internet service, I don't have great phone service, so I can't do anything really on a computer or on my phone. Right. So he would schedule all my appointments on days I had work, and they'd all be teleconferences. So not only would I not be able to do them because I'm at work, even if I had got the day off of work, I still couldn't do them because my connection's not good enough.
Right.
So I complained to the VA, and this is one of my biggest issues with socialized medicine, is that it took them 7 months to be able to get me a new psychiatrist.
Yeah, see, that's dumb.
And then I finally found out that he got fired. So I was like, good.
Well,
again, unions. Right. I'm surprised he got fired.
But I understand that concept, and yeah, because when you look at it, yes, there are some aspects where to socialize something would make no fucking sense. But how do we find? Because my thing has always been this: you don't bring me problems. Let's find solutions.
Agreed.
How do we merge the two. Now, obviously, we're not economists, we're not doctors, we're not, we're neither of these things. We're just two schmoes. But
that's what's awesome about the United States is that just because we're in the position we are in now doesn't mean that we would not at some point have the potential to fix things.
Right.
Like, when I was going to school while I was in the military, right after when I got out, I just realized it wasn't what I wanted to do. I'm not a sit in a classroom, go to college kind of guy.
Right.
I never will be.
Right.
Because I don't learn that way.
Right.
So
I
took all the information stuff I learned, and nowhere does it say anywhere in any legal document that I can't be a governor if I don't want to because I don't have a bachelor's degree.
Right.
And if people don't want to vote for me because I don't have a bachelor's degree, they're just stupid.
Tough titties.
Yeah.
Look, the only qualifications to be president of the United States are to be 35 years of age or older, a United States citizen, and lived in this country for 15 years. So somebody like Martin Lawrence, who was born in Germany but on a military base, he could be president.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
What I'm saying?
Yeah, if you're born on a military base, it's considered
right. You're American citizen.
But people don't realize where people like Elon Musk could never be American. Could never.
No, he can't
because he's an African American.
Yeah, he's from South Africa.
Correct.
Yeah, he's from South Africa. He's from fucking Cape Town.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Charlie Theron.
Yep.
Cape Town. You know what I'm saying? You forget that.
I always joked around with my grandmother who passed away last year. She was born in Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
Could never be president, even though I think she would have been an awesome president.
Probably.
She's not allowed. No, you know what? It's fair. We don't want your Irish ideals.
Whiskey for everybody. You're like, I'm with it, man. Vote for that lady. And that's the thing. Those are the only qualifications. You don't have to have money.
Yep.
You don't have to have been a politician. You don't have to have served in the military. Like, those things look good.
I do think that I personally believe that if I ever was truly put in a position of power, I do think to be run for like Congress, I do think you should have some form of civil service. Firefighters, police officers, military. I just think out of the two politicians that are currently sitting in Congress that I respect, because I only trust two.
Dan Crenshaw
and Tulsi Gabbard.
Tulsi Gabbard's not there anymore.
Correct. She did say
she stepped
out, but
she did. And you know what? I like Dan Crenshaw. I actually like AOC. She's a little strange because she's young, and she's from the Bronx. So that in and of it's the craziest people in the world come from two places: the Bronx and Florida.
That's true. Florida's just the United States version of Australia.
That's just the nutsack of the country, like for real. But
tough people, man.
They are, man. Listen, I got to
picture being hit by 30 hurricanes a year.
Right, you got to
I'm gonna move back.
Right, you got to be a Harvey motherfucker for that shit. And that's what I'm saying. Like, but I definitely like her ideas. Now, I don't agree with all of her ideas. But I like the idea that she's trying to push forward some new shit.
I do. I can agree with that. I'm not a big fan of AOC, but I can at least she's trying to be something fresh.
She's trying. You know what I'm saying? When people look at her like that Marjorie Taylor Greene lady, she scares me. That's a woman that I would never want near any type of actual power.
Agreed.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm not a big fan of the whole the new Green Deal. I don't think.
No, I don't think that's. And that's
not even necessarily AOC. That's a bunch of.
That's right. That's a bunch of different people, but she's tacked onto it the same way they made Obamacare, or they made the Affordable Care Act Obamacare. It's derogatory.
I think that. If we're looking at energy, nuclear is the safest, best way to go.
Probably. I've seen how that game, man. Look at nuclear energy is probably something that would be good if we got it away from actually weapons technology and just adapted it
to
it's energy.
We have it. The issue is that our government has allowed that big oil companies to have way too much power. Wow. And what do you think they're going to do? Do you think they're going to let a competitor come in?
Right. And my thinking has always been this. How many minorities own oil companies? Or women, for that matter? Probably none. There's probably
like one or two.
It might be one. One or two. A logging company. You know, somebody that deforests the rainforest and shit like that. That's not minority owned. That's some old white dudes probably making hand money hand over fist and doesn't give a fuck about the fact that he's ruining the planet. And that's my thing. What are we doing that's going to help us reverse the course of fucking this planet up? Because yes, climate change is real, and yes, humans cause it.
So, I think that if we're going to go down the road of that climate change is real, I don't think solar...
I mean, it could be helpful, but I don't think it's the be-all, end-all answer.
The issue is that what do we do with the batteries and stuff. And people are like, oh, well, that's just talking. I'm like, but the long term is a big deal. Like, yeah, we're going to solve an issue immediately.
Right.
But so, like, oh, look at our emissions. They've gone down. Right. But then all of a sudden...
all these batteries is leaking
what are we going to do? Like, France currently has an electric vehicle graveyard. Because it's cheaper to just buy a new electric vehicle than it is to replace the battery.
Makes sense.
So now you have these...
And then you got the Fukushima, Japan, they're dumping a bunch of contaminated water, radioactive water, into the ocean. And that, like, what the fuck?
It's also, too, like, there's so many caveats and so many problems with trying to go, like, purely green that we're going to cause way more carbon emissions trying to get into that point than what we would if we, again, nuclear.
Right.
We already have everything set up and ready to go.
Have to do it.
The issue is that currently we have either Republicans or Democrats, both are responsible for it, that we have allowed both of them to have these big oil companies in their pockets. And they're allowed to just, like, think about it. We've had the technology to have cars run on over 100 miles to a gallon since the 60s.
Yeah.
Tell me one car in the United States that runs over 100 miles a gallon.
Why? It's much cheaper to make you. It's much easier and more expensive for you to have to go get gas every fucking week.
Exactly.
Twice a week.
And that's the problem, is that until the American people who are responsible for our government, the government is not responsible for us.
Well, people forget that one thing. Like, it's supposed to be we the people.
We the people, for the people, by the people.
You know what I'm saying?
And right now it's
John Hancock.
Yeah, he's the man.
John Hancock. You know what's funny? It's weird. I learned that not from school. I actually learned that from a video game.
Yeah,
Fallout 4 taught me that.
Video games have been one of the most historically... All the Assassin's Creed games...
Oh, yeah.
Ubisoft, was it? I don't know if you heard about it. When Assassin's Creed Origins came out, which was the Egyptian one, they did such an amazing replica of a pyramid that they put in a secret chamber that nobody knew existed.
And then they found it.
And then they realized,
like, yes. Wait, what?
Like, you're just sitting here and telling me that, like, Ubisoft does... For their games that are online, their servers suck.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, like, their Assassin's Creeds, the amount of information that they go out of their way to create is
do very well, yeah. They really
and even other games have become, like...
Far Cry. Far Cry is actually really good. I mean, each game is the fucking same game. But
yeah, just the way games change. Even, like, you look at games like Skyrim and the Elder Scrolls series.
Yeah, man.
Like, they create their own religion, their own economy, and all this stuff in the game, and you take it for granted while you're playing it until you really step back and you're like, people really went hard into this.
They really made this, like, I ain't gonna lie, Skyrim is one of my favorite games. And I think about game developers and what they do for a living, and I'm like, we sit here and play these games for 60, 80, I've been playing Skyrim since 2011, shit, like...
Same.
The fact that they made this such an immersive world that you feel so comfortable being in it. It's like, and then when you're out of it, it's like, damn, you miss it. You want to go back to it.
And that's awesome.
It's awesome, but it's kind of scary at the same time. That's almost mind control.
I've always been a super competitive person. I used to play sports. Now I'm a little chubby, so it's harder to play some sports.
Yeah, I
but
know feeling.
I've always loved playing online, playing against people. Like the fact that when it comes to shooters, like to just outposition people. When it comes to just strategy games, to just out-chess somebody.
Yeah.
It's a great feeling.
With the PTSD, can you play like a Call of Duty or something like that?
Not as
comfortable.
So I used to play Gears of War competitively.
Okay.
Not anymore. A lot of shooters and stuff I have a little bit of a harder time. Anything that's a little bit more graphic and gory, I have a little bit more of a harder time.
Okay.
I still play games like Apex.
Okay.
Because I think Apex Legends 1 is I'm a huge Battle Royale fan.
Right, but that's more, you can clearly see that's not
when someone dies, they turn into a crate.
Right, there's no realism to that. Yeah.
You know, and stuff that gets like super gory and bloody and stuff, sometimes I have a little bit of a hard time with. But at the end of the day, I can usually play most things. Mm-hmm. Like, I still huge Skyrim fan. Yeah. Love the Elder Scrolls series as a whole.
There are fucking dragons in that, you know. It's kind of hard to be scared of the dragons, and you know what I'm saying, because you know they're not real anymore.
But what I think is hilarious too is
I said anymore. All right.
You look at, remember the first time you ever loaded up Skyrim?
Yeah.
And you fight your first dragon.
Yeah.
You're like, this is gonna be horrible,
epic fight. epic fight.
The like 700th time you fight a dragon, you're like, oh, not this. Go away.
Yeah, this motherfucker.
I'm like, I guess I could use the shout.
Yeah, I've got Dragon Range, fuck it, and I've got Dragon's Bane. Okay, I'll kill you in 3 hits.
Good times.
I mean, I'll take your soul, unless you went to fucking Soulstime and came back to Murex and shit from you. The first time that happened to me, I was tight. Like, this motherfucker stole my soul.
I'm still salty.
I'm still mad about that shit. Like, this motherfucker stole my soul. I want that shit back.
And you don't get him back, even when you beat him.
Yeah, you don't get all them souls.
I'm like, oh, so this dude, because I didn't want to do I remember, like, night and day, man. Like, I didn't want to do the quest line.
Right.
Like, I wanted to wait, like, I was still going super in depth with Dawn Guard.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, there were still little things I didn't finish in there. And I went to Soulstime because I was like, all right, well, I want to get this quest marker off, and I just want to go see what it's like. And, you know, then, of course, you're there. So you start
Sorry, and
exploring.
Gerard sends you there to get the damn dwarven schematic.
Yeah.
And even though I don't want to go there yet, I gotta go there.
So, you know, I start exploring a little bit. Maybe I start doing it. I'm like, oh, I went a little too far. I'm like, all right, it's not a big deal. Go back, dragons. I'm like, that's not going towards me.
What the fuck?
I turn around, and I'm like,
who are you?
now I gotta go back. And I remember the first time I ever fought him, whooped me.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, whoa, I was not mentally prepared for this fight. Like, what is going on? So I was like, all right, we gotta have a better strategy, which did not go well. But eventually we figured it out.
Yeah. I rolled in there with some dragon scale armor.
Oh, yeah.
With the extra shout on it to give you the Mo armor. And then I had, because my favorite shout is actually the shit that fucking, like, takes your health away and shit like that. And I love that shout, or the one that disarms you. I love disarm.
Oh, the disarm one's always
just awesome. Like, really? Like, what the fuck?
Put that away.
Yeah, you don't need that. And then I go pick their weapon up. And they're like, what?
Good times.
I love that game. But, you know, getting back on track here, I guess. It's like, because I'll talk about Skyrim for the rest of the fucking day. What I guess the ultimate question would be, what is the solution to these problems in that, how do we, first of all, my thing was, all right, don't defund the police, make it much harder to become a cop.
I'm okay with that.
You know what I'm saying?
Like, I think, think about it. For me to become a soldier, I need 9 weeks of basic training. Right. And then I just need to go, after that, go to my schooling to learn my job that I'm going to do in the military. Right. Like, you're going to tell me you can't run like a 15-week police course?
I mean, even more than that, because how long is the police academy? Like 6 weeks?
I think so.
Yeah.
Like,
definitely more than that.
I think a good, like, 4 months. Minimum.
And
because
then after that 4 months, you need to go do something like BUDS. Like what you do to become a Navy SEAL. You need to go do something like that.
Well,
because that's going to weed out those who don't have the proper.
I think if you did like a genuine 4-week basic training, like put them through actual scenarios, I think the people who are not mentally tough will get, because when going through basic, you know, a lot of people drop out.
Oh, sure.
People don't realize that, and that's just 9 weeks.
Yeah.
And listen, the military right now is, even when I went through it, is way softer than when it was when my grandparents went through it.
Yeah.
Like
my grandpops went in there and.
Like my mother, I joke around, but it's true. My mother was way more terrifying than any of my drill sergeants were, and in a respectful way, right? And that made basic training super easy for me. Basically, it was me for 9 weeks exercising, getting really good shape, and having the time of my life.
Right.
Because I didn't really get yelled at because I was told to do something.
I did
it, and that's how I was raised.
Right.
Hey, someone who's in charge of you is going to tell you what to do. All right. Go do it. Don't ask questions.
I don't want people in charge of me. But
true. Nobody does.
Fine. I'll do it. But that's what I'm saying. That's why I don't mind working for a living. Like, as much as I don't want to, I can. It's okay. Yeah. It's no problem.
and I think that's another big portion with the Americans. Like, we want to fix the system, and we want everybody to do their fair share. And I think that's one of the people hate the S word, socialism, because when you look at countries who have used it. Right, you have those people who work super hard.
Right.
Where do they end up? The United States.
States.
They bail because they're like, why are we putting in all this work? Why are we putting in all this effort? And what are we getting in return?
So what I'm saying is, so don't call it socialism. Call it something else. Call it fucking Jim Billy Bob for all I care.
Right, and the issue is that the reason why socialism has that bad rap is because everywhere that has fallen apart like that was the government regime that they wanted to use.
Right.
So. I had a history teacher tell me socialism and communism are wonderful and amazing ideas on paper.
Right.
But the problem is that that's if every single person who's going to live in that country is going to pull their weight.
Right.
And currently, right now, with the system we have, everybody doesn't pull their weight.
No, but that shows you that democracy doesn't work perfectly either.
But it's not the democracy that's the problem. It's that our government has allowed it to happen.
Right.
Right? Because think about it. Like, welfare. We have put way too much power into welfare.
I agree.
And that is one of the main reasons. I think unemployment was skyrocketed when welfare started.
Welfare started as a means to break up homes.
Agreed.
You know what I'm saying? And
the single, sorry to cut you off, the single parenthood rate in, was it the white community went from like 12% to now is at 25%?
Yeah, and
the black community
was
what?
at 87%.
What's crazy is that, you know, because this was still during the civil rights movements and stuff. So you still had not necessarily, but even if we want to go back to even slavery, a black child born in was it like an 8% chance to be born into a single family household, which was lower than a white family at the time, which is, even during slavery, the black community had more tight-knit family units.
Right.
And then as soon as welfare hit, you can literally look at the graph.
Right.
They are side by side, steadily.
Because the rules of welfare, in order to get it, I forget what movie it is. It's got James Earl Jones in it.
Awesome.
But he goes into this he goes into the welfare office, and he's like, all right, so you tell me that if I get the welfare, I can't live in the house, or you take it from us. But if I get the welfare and I got a job, we lose the welfare anyway. But if I move out of the house and don't live with my wife, she can get the welfare, but if I live there and make enough and make money, I can't get it.
Correct.
Like, so it's like, okay, so what are you telling me? Like, either I can take the money from you, or I can't live with my wife? Like, what the fuck?
And that's not necessarily democracy. That's not capitalism.
No, that's nothing.
That's our government.
That's
the
government,
people we put in charge to literally because like you said earlier, there are bad people, there are good people, right? These are people snakes, man, who literally use the right words at the right time to get in positions of power to then do what they knew would tear people apart and tear. Because think about it, as soon as you start tearing, like people always say when you look at crime, right? Because what is it? Black Americans make up 12% of the population currently.
Yes, but we serve about 87% of the prison population. Yeah.
But also too, you look at like 90% of the crime comes from 12% of the population. Now, again, you can go super dive deep into those numbers and try picking.
Well, what they never do, they always talk about black on black crime, and it sickens me when they do because they
90%
never
of homicides.
Sure, but you're only looking at that from the perspective that no white people live in the neighborhood, so it's only black on black crime. If we look at all serial killers, the majority of them are white people. You know what I'm saying? If we look at mass shooters, the majority of them have been white people. So who's killing more? Yes, we kill more in our communities because we don't have access to the knowledge of guns and everything, and we also have access to guns.
If you want a really, really hot take, okay, on the number one killer of black Americans is still and always will be abortion.
Yeah, definitely.
If you want to create a problem,
Plan B, please forget about it.
If you want to fix a problem, we need to, everybody, not just one group of people.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to put more trust and power into the family unit.
Yeah.
We need to bring families back together.
Definitely.
That's just it.
Now, to be fair, and I always say this is one of those things where I'm very conservative. So I don't agree with abortion, not because of any biblical reasons or anything like that, just because I think it's wrong. But I do believe that nobody with a penis or no government body should have any say in what a woman does with her body, except for her doctor and her husband or boyfriend, whatever the case may be. Those are the only people that should have any say in what's happening with her body.
So my issue, we almost completely agree on that. So I don't agree with abortion. I think it's a horrible evil. I think from the moment of conception, it's a child, right? And because
I don't know about I don't know, but I guess because that's fair.
From the moment of conception, when sperm hits the egg, it is its own DNA.
Right.
From that moment. So if a woman decides to abort that, is that hers? It's not her DNA. It's only half her DNA.
Right.
So that's where I have the issue where if I don't.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Her husband or her boyfriend, or whatever the case may be, and the doctor that those are the only people that should have a say.
Right. It should be in your bedroom.
It should be in your bedroom.
Right. Like in your house.
In the cases of rape and incest,
which is less than 1%.
It is, but then you also have to think about what about those that aren't reported.
Well, so it's
I mean, like look at a state like Arkansas, where incest is kind of normal.
So let's look at the percentage, right? So 0.4% of abortion cases are rape, incest, blah, blah. And I agree with you. What about the ones that aren't reported?
Right.
Let's go crazy, right? Let's just make this wild numbers. Let's say 5%.
Let's say 5%.
All right. Is it still fair to make a law and rule to punish the other 95%?
No.
Other 95%.
But let's look at it as a case-by-case basis.
Agreed.
And that's what it should be. Let's look at it as a case-by-case basis, like we do every other individual.
But this is where this also gets. This is where we need to hold this part up too. Is that what you now do is you're going to have women falsely allegedly saying like, oh no, I was raped. Okay.
Right.
Well then they should also
prove it.
Yes.
You got to prove it. And I'm not saying, because I'm not one of those people that's with the whole believe all women shit.
Yeah.
I understand that the hashtag #MeToo, that's a real thing. I know that women have suffered a lot in this country. I know that they have been belittled and degraded and treated like shit by a lot of powerful motherfuckers.
Yep.
And I know shit, in my past, I've been a shitty person to women. I know. You know what I'm saying?
My mom would beat me.
My mom, well, shit, I'm so scared of my mama now. She dead, but yeah, I get that. But I know for a fact that there have been times where I haven't been the best to women.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I can understand that.
And I recognize that now. You know what I'm saying? But that's because I've been given the chance to learn and grow.
Exactly.
And have the opportunity to become better and see the error of those ways. You know what I'm saying? Not everybody's afforded that. But they just want to cancel you. They don't give you the opportunity to grow and learn from the mistake. They just want you to be done. Like, you can't work no more. You can't have a livelihood. You can't do this. That's bullshit to me.
And what's, we have all, again, with women's rights, like, we're steadily, with the way our current, like, political structure, we're steadily stripping women from their rights. Right. And that's not
We're stripping voters. We're stripping women. Now, Joe Rogan said something as well I wanted to touch on. The man said, I said something to the effect, and I was listening to the episode that he said it in, and he was like, yeah, at some point it's going to be where straight white men are not going to be able to have a voice.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, he's kind of right. Because just take the white part out of it and just say straight man.
Yeah, because even now...
That's hard to have. It's hard to be a straight man because nowadays you can get canceled simply for, like, no, I'm not going to date the trans woman because, I'd like to have a family one day, and unfortunately, she can't do that. And barring the fact that I'm using her preferred pronoun and all these things.
Yes, so we're like, I'm much less accommodating. I will be respectful. So, like, I think we've talked about this before, where if I met a person who was transitioning, right, whether a man becoming a woman, woman becoming a man, I will call them by their name.
Right.
I will not call them by their pronouns because you can't just change. And I know that hurts people's feelings. You are born the way you are born. And I understand if you don't feel that way, you're not comfortable, that's fine. I respect that completely. I wish you the best.
But if I walked around talking about, inside I feel like a upper middle class white man, nobody's going to take me seriously with that shit.
I would never force someone else to call me something specifically, or to use certain language to call me something, so I don't expect other people to do it to me.
Right.
And even if it is something as a literal one-syllable word, you are still trying to go into your corrupted view, not to be negative.
No, I know what you mean. But I know what you mean.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and like I said, there's only so far into it that I'm going to travel with you, but I will respect you enough to address you and treat you like a treat you like a person. And treat you with the same dignity and respect that you are due. I don't care what you think.
Exactly.
I don't give a shit. If you treat me with respect and love, I'm going to treat you the same. I don't
Absolutely.
About any of the other shit.
And when it comes to, especially in people in the transgender community, we're looking at, a lot of times you look at when women become men, right? I feel like that's, in my opinion, I feel like I see that a little bit more.
No. I definitely see more men becoming women.
But I think men becoming women is way more of a negative effect on today's society, because you're going to have, realistically, what would happen if LeBron James decided to...
I ask that question all the time. And of course we're paraphrasing a Dave Chappelle bit. Does he stay in the NBA, or does he join the WNBA and proceed to score 156 points a fucking game?
Absolutely.
Like, and that's what I'm saying.
The
Like,
problem
that's
is
not fair.
It's not, and that's you have former mixed martial arts situations where a man identified as a woman cracked a woman's skull open.
Yep. What was her name? Fallon Fox. I believe. Yep.
You have men who can't compete in men's powerlifting,
so they're
identifying as women and going and just embarrassing women at their
right. I'm not with that shit because it's not fair to women.
And people say, well, that's not all trans, but unfortunately, it's on the umbrella.
It's on the umbrella, and it's being allowed. And I think of a state like Connecticut where it's high schoolers that it's happening to. And I'm like, so you mean to tell me that these young women who worked really fucking hard to do what they did and break these records and make these records, they're just not good enough because
you currently have high school girls who are losing college scholarships to high school boys who identify as girls.
Exactly.
And like we're going to talk about here and say that that's okay.
Yeah, no, it's
like I'm forced to.
That's not.
It's not good.
And I'm sorry that it could be hurtful to some people, but you know what? At the same time, since your brain doesn't fully develop until you're 25, these are decisions that you shouldn't be able to make until then.
Agreed. I especially when you have parents doing like literal hormone therapy to like a 7-year-old child and forcing them like, hey, listen, I know I had a boy, but I really want a girl, so I'm going to pump you with estrogen at 7 years old.
That's wrong to me.
That's child abuse.
That is.
In every other country in the world.
I'm also of the belief that feeding your kids nothing but McDonald's and shit is
child abuse. Agreed 100%.
So, and I did eat a lot of McDonald's growing up. This is why I just got back to my high school weight. So, fuck y'all. But
no, I agree. Like, again, it comes all down to what are we allowing the government to do? Mm-hmm. Where you go in, I want to go buy healthy food from the grocery store, spend $100 on what? 12, 13 objects?
Right.
I want to go buy unhealthy food with $100.
I got the whole cart full.
Cart is capped. I might go get another one.
And the fucked up shit is, and then again, that just comes from my perspective. In our community, my community, they call those food deserts for a reason. You're not finding no fresh shit. Yep. And the freshest shit you're gonna find is still gonna be less fresh than what you find 12 blocks north.
And that's another big issue is that we can look at the inner cities and like, because most inner cities have way more money being pumped into them, but the problem is where's it going? Like
it's not going to the right places.
Inner city schools get more funding than any other school. In like, let's look at Chicago. Let's look at Illinois. Inner city Chicago schools get more money pumped into them than any other suburban school.
But those red line tactics that they
theory.
Well, no, those red line tactics that were implemented still hold some sway because like I know from Monopoly, that your school taxes are paid by your property taxes.
Right.
So in my community, the property taxes are always lower than they are in another community.
You also have a lot of politicians who are pocketing a lot of that money. Like
sure.
In certain areas.
Yeah.
The best way to fix schooling, allow school choice. Allow kids and allow parents say, hey, the kid up on the Upper East Side, way nicer. Mm-hmm. I'm going to send my kid there. Yeah. Why? Let's say kids from the Upper East Side have like what? Because right now, a black kid in an inner city is more likely to be shot and killed by another young black man than is to graduate high school.
That's right.
And that's horrifying. It's terrifying. So why are we not trying to give them the opportunity to get out of those situations? Instead, we're allowing the government to say, oh no, you're within this circle, you need to go to these schools.
Right, your zoned school.
And I think school choice would literally alleviate a huge amount of that problem, getting rid of the teachers union. Mm-hmm. Again, like we said earlier, I think incentivizing good teachers to do good jobs, because good teachers want to help everybody. They want to educate. Yeah. Where you have bad teachers who are there for a paycheck.
And again, revamp the curriculum to where we all have one universal curriculum that people can actually understand.
Agreed.
And isn't made up of a bunch of dumb shit like whatever that Common Core crap. Oh my God. I already don't math well. That shit just fucked me up.
1 + 1 is 3, man.
Yeah, man. Like, what the fuck? No, not my word.
I always talked about with my one friend, all the way up until like you probably like 9th, 10th grade should be like your basic core classes. Yep. Stuff you should. 11th, 12th grade, life skills.
Have a balance checkbook.
Taxes.
Apply for a loan.
Change a tire.
This is what credit is.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
And unfortunately, like when I got out of high school,
here's CPR.
My mother and I struggled. My mother struggled pretty heavily when I was a kid, and because she didn't want to ask for help, and I don't blame her. You know, she wanted to be able to do things on her own. And as she got older, she realized that wasn't the right path to go. And I kind of started down that same path when I was growing, because I was like, well, I could figure it out. I don't need help.
Right.
And then I finally got to a point where I was like, all right, that was stupid.
I might need some help.
I need some help. And I'm definitely in a way better situation now than I was even 10 years ago.
Same.
But we put ourselves in these situations specifically to grow, and I think, like, if we could put that in our education system to allow people to be like, hey, it's not bad to ask for help. It's not bad to go to people when you need it. We're not saying to rely on other people.
No, but there's no shame in asking for help.
Correct. It takes a way stronger person to take a step back, ask for help, than it does to just try to bear it all on their own shoulders.
And that's one thing people always... Pride goes before the fall, man. Like, you can't be so prideful that you can't allow yourself to be like, yo, I'm not sure how to do this. I'm not sure how to go about this. I need some help. Show me the way. Like,
that was always one of my biggest fears growing up. Like, when I was like 18, 19, even 20, like, you don't want to ask for help, not because you don't need it. It's because you're kind of afraid of what other people will think of you. And now that I'm 30, I'll be 30 this year, I sit back and like, I don't care what people think about me.
I'm telling you.
Like, as soon as we can get that a little bit more instilled in like younger generations, like, yo, who cares what this guy thinks?
But the problem is these fucking devices. These are the things that these kids think matters so much because that's what they gotta hold on to, and then there's the social media, and they gotta keep up with this person, you know, and there needs to be less emphasis on material and more emphasis put on family, friends, love, treating each other with respect and decency, kindness, and shit like that.
The people who were born between like 85 and like 98 should be the ones controlling the country right now.
Yeah, nobody above the age of 60 should be making decisions for the future they won't be in.
Agree. I'm actually very, very for term limits for all political seats.
All political seats, including the Supreme Court.
Agreed. I do think, though, that there should at least be an age cap if we're not going to do term limits.
Right.
Because there does come a point in time where, think about it, like, in our lifetime, cassettes, CDs, now everything's downloaded.
I remember those little discs, those little mini discs.
Yep.
Remember those? And now it's all...
Look at video games. Like, you want computers, dial-up internet.
Yes.
Like, in our age range, we have gone through so much technological advances that even we have a hard time keeping up with. How are people who were born, like, in the 40s supposed to, like, who...
They can't adapt.
You're going to tell me that if I call Joe Biden right now, he's not... And I say, hey, I'm trying to reach you about your car's extended warranty. You don't think that he's going to try to be like, oh, my bad, yeah, sure. And
he's going to give all the information. Yeah, like, he's going to give you every piece of... The Kamala Harris going, well, give me your fucking phone, Joe. That's what we're doing. Don't answer this.
But, like,
we know likely, fool.
We know better. Like, think about it, we won't answer our phones if it's not a number we don't recognize.
Right.
And you have even the younger generations who have the same idea. Like, now everything's text. You don't even call people most of the time
anymore. Who the fuck calls anybody anymore?
I hate calling people.
I'd
rather talk to someone.
I would too. I'd rather talk face to face.
Correct.
Than over the
100%. I'd rather talk face to face. If I need to call my bank for something, I'm not afraid to call.
I'm going to the bank.
I'm just dreading every second that I have to make this phone call.
Yeah, no, I'm going to the bank.
Oh, yeah,
I'd rather just wait in line for the 5 minutes and then talk to somebody in person as opposed to wait online on hold for 20 to 30 minutes and then they hang up on me.
I think it's like a 25-minute drive from my house, and I lose service multiple times. But if I kept service the whole time, I'm pretty sure I can get to the bank before they answer the phone. No problem. And I think convenience has become a thing that we've taken for granted.
Yeah, people are way too comfortable. Like I forget, it was on the Joe Rogan podcast, dude wrote a book about comfort and how we're just too comfortable now.
Yeah.
And you're right, it's right. Like, we don't go out and hunt for food anymore.
Yep.
I can fucking Uber Eats that shit.
And then, I read a science article many years ago about how allergies, right? Like, when this guy who was, I think at the time was probably like in his 50s, like how when he went to school, no one had a peanut allergy.
Right.
They didn't exist, basically. Like, nobody had peanut allergies.
Nobody.
And now you go to school, like, schools actually can't even serve anything with peanut products in it.
Yeah.
So he did this, he did a study and he started looking at stuff, and realistically, you look at it, like, when we were going way back, when we had to select a potential mate, right? It was alpha, male, female, and it worked out pretty well.
Worked out.
But again, now it comes down to the thing where we're too comfortable. We don't have to go out and hunt and do stuff for our own food.
Right.
Now we have like these, not to be negative to our, lesser fortunate gentlemen or women, but you have Delta level human beings.
Beta males, Delta males.
Yeah, you got some low level
Zeta motherfuckers.
Yeah, you got some low level men and women and of all shapes and sizes who should never have children.
No,
and
low frequency motherfuckers.
But for some reason they get with this like epitome of apex of human being, and now you have this weird. And again, like.
Well, because the alpha caught the slow, stupid one.
Exactly. And that sounds like, what is it people say? I always sound like really crazy when I say stuff like that, but like, I'm just looking at it from a scientific. I'm not saying that we should lock all of the people who
we're not saying do eugenics experiments.
Yeah, I'm saying
that.
We're saying
damn.
Let's look at how much like people, the little small things that we don't look at anymore, that we take for granted or we just don't even realize.
Right.
And it's just, people are like, oh, shit, I never even thought of that.
Because if you took the time to think about it, then logic would set in, and then you'd be like, most of your arguments that you have would be null and void, because once you apply logic to anything you think, it'd be like, none of that shit stands up to scrutiny.
Yep.
And that's a fucked up thing to have to figure out.
It is, and I think a lot of people need to hear that, and really need to just kind of let that hit home, is that, one, we need to stop literally just brain dead watching TV, like especially the media. Like,
turn that shit off.
Was it out of 14 different news stations? 13 are controlled by the right and left, and then you have one's controlled by the right.
Well, I know. The same motherfuckers who own Fox News own CNN and then MSNBC. They're all owned by the same people.
They're all crazy.
They're all crazy.
The only time you can get good, accurate information is if you go out of your way to find it.
You have to watch public news or public radio, which is basically no corporate sponsors.
Podcasts. And like, was it less than like 5%?
And the BBC.
And people don't want to do that.
Yeah.
People don't want, I listen, I don't like Europe.
I do. I do. You know why? You know I like Europe? Because you know what? I'm meeting more and more people from there.
I have family from there, and they all.
I like a lot of them. Not all of them, but so they're kind of cool. I like them, and that accent. Listen, the accent's lovely.
I will admit the accent is really nice, but
they say weird words. They be saying like my homegirl Sappy. She hates Big Show. She hates it when we say it because I'll be like, yo, the word is aluminum. She'd be like, no, it's aluminium. I'm like, no. How you add 4 syllables to the word? Aluminium. You bloody you pissed me off, yeah.
Was that? I used to play Xbox with a couple guys from England all the time, and used to really get under their skin when I'm like, listen, you're welcome for not being German. And they just get so mad. And I'm like, well, I mean, I'm not wrong. I mean, you either be German or Russian, so you could pick if we didn't get involved. So, am I wrong?
Either way, you sucked.
Yeah, so I mean, you're welcome.
I say the same thing when motherfuckers talking about the South will rise again. Rise what? You didn't rise to the occasion the first time.
Yeah,
you lost.
Yeah, the first time you got your ass kicked, and guess what? You try again, it'll happen again.
It'll happen again. Like, stop it.
Now you're gonna have, no, people are stupid. I hate.
You got mad. Some of the motherfuckers like, yo, we are not with this shit.
Oh yeah, that's. I think
that comfort though.
Yeah,
that's that comfort. Like,
I'd be interested in your opinion on this. So, how many people do you think have like more middle ground conservative views, but are too afraid to share them because?
What do you mean, like
let's say because it's probably very safe to say that a vast majority of people now in the United States, when they say things either online, tend to be very more left-leaning. I'm not going to say crazy liberal.
Right, but they tend to veer left. Yeah.
But how many of those people, are
just afraid to
they just afraid, hey, I actually have a lot of these right-leaning views, but or even central.
I can't say that shit.
I'd
have to, if I had to guess a number, I'd say at least 30%.
And think about it, that's crazy, because if you look at the election time, for 2016 when it was Trump and Hillary and other people, but nobody cares about them. The numbers don't add up because Hillary Clinton won by a landslide every single primary. I mean, granted, the primaries are BS because they poll 1,000 people.
Right.
But every simulated election they did had Hillary winning by like 80% to 20, and that's like the lowest.
Yeah.
And then
margin of error and shit.
Trump walks in with like nope and ruined
the entire thing. Like, yo, these models don't make no sense.
I think, but like, and again, like I always tell people, I'm not a Trump supporter. I think when he won, right? Because I voted for Gary Johnson in 2016.
Right.
So
he was a libertarian dude.
Correct.
Yeah.
He was, again, didn't agree with all of his points of views, but there were some things like, and plus the media also, whenever he was asked questions on like TV, he was railed.
He gave questions. He answered
and like
shit.
He would do his best to answer his but like they would give him the hard question. Where like even Trump and when Clinton were softballs. I'm like, come on, man.
All day.
So when Trump won, I immediately said, I'm like, you know what? Not the guy I wanted, but
I give him the benefit of the doubt.
I'll give him 4 years. Let's see,
let's see what he can do.
That's my responsibility.
And I think everybody, for the most part, I know Dave Chappelle said that on his SNL monologue that weekend. It was like, yo, I'll give him a shot if he'll give us a shot.
Yeah.
Like, and that's a real thing to say, and I appreciate the sentiment. Did he follow through on his promise?
So, realistically, if you take away everything the media said, right? Because for the past 4 years when he was in office, there was never one positive thing ever said.
Well, you watch Fox News, all they ever said was positive shit.
One news
even when he said negative shit, they
literally took a video of like a montage, like a 15-minute montage.
All right, so you were saying like you're saying in his first week.
President Trump, former President Trump, when he within his first like week, 2 weeks, month, whatever, he donated more money and he signed a bill to put more money into historical black colleges.
Right.
Throughout his entire 4 years than anybody, especially even after having a black president, President Obama did for his entire 8 years.
Well, my thing on Obama was this, and this is what I said, and this is kind of how I've understood it. Like, the presidency is a job where you have to look out for everybody.
Correct. You are the representation.
And yes, as a black president, I kind of expected him to like do something more for the people. And I did.
And as an outside viewer, so did I.
Yeah,
like as a person who is not black, clearly.
Like, it really should have just it would have made so much sense for him to be like, yeah, so we're doing this, and we're gonna make it but he didn't do that. But gay marriage got legalized. So, okay, cool. Okay, that's great.
Which. This is going to sound weird when I first say it. I'm not against.
Right.
I think it should have been on a state by state level.
Sure.
I don't think it should have been. I don't think it should have ever had to gotten to the point where it was
a federal. Yeah.
Unless all 50 states legalize it, then the federal government steps in and is like, hey, we're just gonna fill this in. Is that okay? And everyone's like, yeah, sure. Okay.
We already did it. You know what I mean? But I feel the same way about cannabis legalization. Like,
I think it should be completely legal.
Everybody, and I know there's a Republican measure I think going through right now where they're trying to push for federal legalization. So that tells me that they are wooing the black vote.
From being more of a fence sitter, sitting back, the reason I lean more conservative is because when I sat back and looked at both sides, because I was raised in a very liberal household.
Right.
And all the way up until my early 20s, I would consider myself, if we're going to use a label, a liberal.
Right.
And then I eventually became more of a fence. Then I went pretty far right, but not like crazy alt-right.
Right.
I jumped the fence and was hanging out with some people at like a pool party.
Okay.
But then I realized like, okay, they're not all that great either. So I'm like, I'm just going to stay in the middle because both sides got good stuff.
I'll set up this shit here in the shade. People can gravitate if they'd like.
But like, I don't know. There's just too much.
There's too much rigmarole that goes into everything, and like I always say, give people credit for the things that they do right, hold people accountable for the things they do wrong.
But what I've seen is that people who definitely tend to lean more to the right tend to be a little bit more willing to give away, where like, think about it, if you go into the 90s, the right, 100% anti-gay marriage.
Yeah.
No, never going to happen, will never happen in this country. And then they start being like, you know what? Not a big deal. All right, we'll let it go.
Because, as the older ones got old and
started leaving out.
And these newer ones came in, and they're like, well, damn, these are what my constituents are.
And then you have, and same thing with, I think, what's going to happen with a lot of drug legalization is that, hey, they're adamant against it, don't want it, but like the right's like, you know what? All right, fine. We're realizing that's not that big of a deal. We'll let it go. And I think honestly, I just think marijuana should be treated the same way as alcohol.
No, it definitely shouldn't.
I mean,
because alcohol is way worse.
Agreed. I'm not talking.
I say as I sip my whiskey.
It's more or less like it should be legal. Anybody from a certain age
you should be able to buy it. Right? Like,
it should be there.
But I also don't want I don't want government grown weed. That's gonna be trash.
Listen, I don't smoke. I consider myself straight edge. I don't drink smoke.
As far as my alter ego is concerned, neither do I.
So, listen, I wouldn't trust government grown weed.
Right.
And I would never smoke it.
That shit would be trash.
Yo, I don't even know much about it. I'd be like, yo,
that should be the Marlboro fucking cigarette weed. That should be like a fucking a Benson and Hedges. Like, what are you doing? I don't know.
Just legal. People always say, working medicine. I've always been a big advocate that I don't see addiction as a disease.
Right. Me neither. That's just stupid.
Because I don't know a single person that's chosen most diseases. Mm-hmm. Right. You can make the argument for cancer.
If you smoke cigarettes,
cigarettes, but if you've never smoked a cigarette in your day and you get cancer,
that's kind of fucked up.
I don't remember saying, man, I can't wish I get that, or Alzheimer's.
Yeah, nobody wants that.
Nobody wants those things. They're horrible things.
Yes.
I have heard people say, you know what? I know heroin's horrible for me, but I'm just gonna try it one time.
I've never heard anybody say that, and I'd be afraid of anybody that would say that.
But people have said that.
That's crazy.
Because people used heroin, and here we are. You don't just... I want to know the number of how many people who accidentally used heroin, because I guarantee you it's way less than the people who said, one shot's not going to hurt that bad.
One shot ain't going to hurt me that bad. But they were wrong.
They were very wrong.
They were wrong.
Because people get angry when I say this too. I have the drastic idea that I don't think EMTs should be allowed to administer Narcan.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, so many people would die. I'm like, drug addicts would die.
Yeah, but I mean, again...
Alright, so if you remember when we went to the training with police officers, right?
Right.
If you have an EMT who comes onto a scene, right? They get a phone call. They walk in, arms wrapped up, needles still in, heroin all over the place.
Right.
They don't have to administer Narcan.
I mean,
it'll be up to them. Which, granted, puts a lot of pressure on them, but it's the same situation with a police officer.
My thing is this. For the opioid addictions, I blame pharmaceutical companies.
Agreed.
Because they're the ones that got everybody hooked on OxyContin, Oxycodone, Percocet, da. I remember working insurance. You can only obtain a 30-day supply once a 30 days. And the 30-day supply was literally like 15 pills.
Yeah.
You're going to go through 15 pills in the first 2 days if you're an addict.
Correct. You're going to go through them real quick.
So it's so much easier for me, because then once you go there, they're not giving you any more for the month, so you're stuck. So now you're in pain, or you think you're in pain.
Correct.
So what's the easiest thing to do? Either you can go rob somebody of their pills or whatever, cause violence or whatever, or go see the local homie who got to get a pack of that shit. It's the same drug. It's going to alleviate your pain, and it costs a fraction less.
And that's, you go into the FDA, right? And another huge government agency.
Well, think about it. They allow fluoride to be in the water, fluoride to be in your toothpaste. They allow for petrochemicals to be in your food. And
they allowed you to get the coronavirus even though it wasn't completely tested yet. Like, come on, guys.
They let you get the vaccine, and
the thing is that they don't care.
They do not give a shit.
And everybody who sits here and believes that the government cares about you, you are living in the wrong country.
You're a simp.
You are a government simp, and that is a horrible thing to be. I'd rather meet a real simp.
Yeah.
Over a government simp.
Any day.
But you're not in the right place. This country wasn't found on letting the government run everything. It's letting the people do what's right. Because someone said to me not too long ago about, one of my friends were talking about slavery, and he said, do you think it would have went away if the government never stepped in? I was like, yes, I think it would have taken longer, which is a horrible thing again.
And it might have gotten way more violent.
Oh yeah, it would have definitely, the Civil War was already bloody.
That was already bloody, but if it was left to our devices,
it would have gotten way worse. And eventually would have probably led to another Civil War.
Right, or just a massacre of people, and that wouldn't have been good for anybody.
Agreed. So I'm glad we did what we had to do and
got a way out of it.
Yes, and I'm glad, because think about it, slavery is still a horrible thing all over the world today.
Right. And we still have it in this country. It's just called prison now.
The prison system's a little, you have I would love to see all the people who are in for non-violent drug crimes to get out. Absolutely. Like, there's no reason to have those people there.
I'm one of those people that think the only people who should be in prison are murderers and rapists.
Agreed. I think there's probably some people. There's probably some gray area where there's
sure.
people.
Like cold-blooded murder, like first-degree murder. Like,
well, I think we should bring the death penalty back. Crime is statistically lower.
Some places have it.
But crime is in most areas, crime was statistically lower.
North Carolina, South Carolina just made it so the firing squad is an option for you again.
Y'all bring it back.
They brought back the firing squad. But now here's the thing. If I choose the firing squad, you shoot me and I live.
So
I go free, right?
Wasn't there a guy who was charged with a life sentence, and I think he was put in an electric chair, and he survived.
Right.
Well, he technically died, but he self-revived. It was weird. This is a really weird situation.
He died initially, but then his heart started beating again a few minutes later.
So then he appealed and made the argument that he served his life sentence.
Yes, I died.
And he technically did.
Yeah, I died.
And like, even if he did something horrible,
doesn't matter. I already died.
He served his time.
I served my life sentence. I died. And like, I was gone for 5 seconds.
He's still dead for 5 seconds.
Still dead.
So that's weird. But like people, because when I tell people that we should bring the death penalty back, a lot of people are like, well, what about the people who are in prison that don't belong there? Statistically, it's one of the lowest it's ever been since ever.
But I don't think those statistics count privately on prisons.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? And that's where a lot of that comes from. That's why when you call, to pay your bills for something, you're sometimes calling prisons. When you order stuff online, sometimes you're getting it from prisoners. You're giving them your personal information.
The way I look at it is that we need to... Lost my train of thought there. So... Lost.
We were talking about prisons, and we're talking about how they are fundamentally slavery.
The way we want to get rid of... Like, if we have people who are in there that don't belong in there.
Right.
Science has become... Especially law and order science has become undeniable most times.
Yeah, a lot of forensic science is hopeful,
I'm talking like, we have a video of this guy killing people.
Right.
He clearly killed someone, and they're like, oh no, instead we're going to let him live off the system for 17 life sentences, and he's going to be in jail for 80 years because he's only 21 years old and he's going to live to a solid 101. And I'm like,
especially in prison if nobody stabs him or whatever.
Yeah, because, why am I going to be here paying? Like, my tax dollars go to that. Yep. And I'm like, no, listen, why am I being punished for what he did?
Right.
And people, I believe, man, the less taxes you have, the stronger the country is, because you can go out and spend things, you can go out and buy things that you want. Yep. The economy becomes more powerful. It's really simple. Like, economics is actually very simple.
It's quite simple, right? When you really just think about it.
And people are like, oh, well, it's way more. No, it's really not. If you got a small group community of people who created their own money, right? They determine what the worth is. Mm-hmm. Their money will never inflate as long as they don't make more money. If they say this is the set amount of money that we have for our community,
that's it.
That's what it's worth. Until they determine that, like, hey, we have more people in our community now it would be worth it for us to increase.
But whoever votes to increase their taxes, that's why Colorado has those Tabor laws, which make it virtually impossible to raise taxes to get the money for all the for all the recreational weed they've been selling, because nobody ever votes to raise their taxes.
Smart.
You know what I'm saying? But they have those laws there.
Yeah.
So the people have the right to vote to raise taxes. And then again, who votes to raise their taxes?
And then think about our taxes go to the paychecks to all the people we have sitting in Congress and stuff like that. And who votes for their raises? They do.
They do. And then for people who are retired presidents and politics,
they still get paid
for life. Yeah.
I really don't believe that if you were a politician, you deserve to get paid the rest of your life.
I don't think so either.
I know that, again, no one's ever a fan of him, but I know Trump did waive any money that he's making as...
Oh, no, he claimed his pension.
When he might have claimed his pension, but he didn't make a single paycheck while he made $1 paycheck.
Oh, so he did what Bloomberg did in New York when he was mayor.
Because he didn't need the money, and he said
But he really kind of did, though. And that's the worst thing. Like, look, people have this misconception that Donald Trump was a great businessman, and if you look at all the listen, if you have more than 5 bankruptcies, that means you failed as a businessman. If you were great as a TV host for your show, because that's where most of his money is actually from.
Oh, yeah,
but his businesses don't generate revenue like that. Trump Casino, that's done. That got blown the fuck up.
His hotels still do well, though.
His hotels, he don't have any more hotels. They took his name off of them.
Well, yeah, it's because...
They don't want to be associated with him. Now, of course, does he still own portions of? I'm
Absolutely.
sure. You know what I'm saying? But is he a billionaire? No. Is he even a millionaire? Probably not. But does he have money? Sure.
Oh,
but it's not liquid. You understand what I mean? Like, he can't just go to the bank and be like, yeah, I'm pulling out $1 million. No, you can't.
If he's getting the pension now, he probably
well, no, because they don't get paid that much. What do they get paid? Like, I think the president
Six figures.
I think they make $80,000 a year.
Close
I think
to
is the
6
president. Yeah,
that's
not bad.
It's not bad, but I mean, why?
Exactly.
And
why?
not him. Everybody before him.
Right.
Like,
why am I still paying Jimmy Carter? That motherfucker been out of office forever.
Like, exactly. Like, why? Why are they like any Congress and all them?
Yeah.
Why are they making money?
I don't think Nancy Pelosi or Mitch McConnell deserve their pay.
They don't.
They're both fucking stupid. Like, neither
They're
one of them.
And
They're two
maybe
old, out of touch assholes.
And like I said before, man, it's got to be people who were born in late 80s, early 90s.
Early 90s. Those are the ones who should, like Dan Crenshaw. He's about 50, I guess, maybe. Cool. His judgment is still sound.
Yeah.
AOC, she's in her 30s. Okay, cool. Judgment still sound. Ilhan Omar, what's the other dude? Tim Scott, Republican. You know what I'm saying? Still sound body. Sound mind and body.
There are some really good choices.
There are some really good choices, just that the ones they keep putting in front of us are such shit.
Well, and I think we had a chance, man. Every 4 years, we have a chance. Every American, not just me and you, every American has a chance to genuinely create an actual change. Not the, change on a poster to make you feel good. Like, actual real change.
Real change, yeah.
And we decide that, you're not voting for person A or person B, you're an idiot, and you wasted your vote.
You wasted your vote. I hate that fucking argument.
I hate the argument, you wasted your vote, and I hate the argument, so a vote for this person's a vote for Trump. Because the person for Trump told me that a vote for that person's a vote for Biden. So who's getting my vote?
Who's getting the vote there? That kind of the logic cancels each other out.
And that's, I've noticed that, and not always, people who are truly, like, far left liberals, right? Like, the scary ones.
Yeah.
All of their beliefs and ideals tend to be all hypocritical. Yeah. So they one of the big arguments is that they're very get rid of all guns. Right? That's one of the big ones. No more guns for people.
Right, until somebody breaks into your house and it takes an hour for the cops to get
And then they're also super anti-police.
Right.
But then they're like, but the police are the ones that should have those guns. I'm like,
you can't have it both ways, man. You can't have it both ways.
Exactly. And, it was the one, once somebody saw, the far left wants to get rid of the police. So what we'll do is disband all the police. Right. So this way all the super rich people can just hire private police. Then all the people who are, complaining that there were no police anymore are complaining that these super rich people have private police, and then they want their own private police. Mm-hmm. So then we just bring the police
back.
But we just call it something else. So
they'll call police.
The high five squad, riding around, just making people feel better. Yay! They're allowed to carry a Nerf gun and the plastic handcuffs that you get when you're 6 years old from a dollar store.
You get a cap gun.
Hey, stop. As they're cranking a Nerf gun.
You know what I'm saying? Doing airsoft shit. Hey, you keep going. I'm gonna get you now. You wait till I...
Was it Key and Peele? Who did the... No, who was it? God, I'm trying to remember. Who did a skit where one of them was a police officer and the other one was an armed robber, and he's getting in the car and he's like, yo, he's pointing the gun, don't get in that car. Yo, don't drive away, man. Yo, don't do that. And the dude, he's like, oh, come on.
Yeah, I know it's Keith.
And I'm like, yo, that's how they want it to be though. They everyone needs to be held accountable for all their own actions, and I feel like that's the big problem with today. Is that everybody...
Amongst many things, yeah.
Nobody wants to be accountable anymore. Everybody wants someone else to solve their problems.
Well, social media has made, and I'm sure you've heard this, and I'm not the only one who's ever said it, but social media has made people be real comfortable not getting punched in the face.
Absolutely.
They should be getting punched in the face for.
Anything I ever post on Facebook, when I had Twitter, I got rid of Twitter. I might re-download it, but everything I've ever put on Twitter, on my Facebook, on Instagram, anywhere. Mm-hmm. I am more than comfortable to say it to someone's face.
Right.
And I will never be afraid of that.
Right.
If you want to take backlash against me, just remember there are repercussions for yourself.
Right.
Because even though I'm chubby, I hit pretty hard.
You know what I'm saying? But this is what I'm saying. Like, yes, but people should be allowed to have this discourse.
Actually, agreed.
And say what they want to say, but just don't be a dick about it.
Absolutely.
Like you can have your opinion.
Yep.
But if your opinion is hurtful to others, maybe you should fucking change the way you express your opinion.
Agreed. I'm not agreed.
I'm not saying change your opinion. Change the way you express it.
Yeah, never go out of your way to. If you're going out of your way purposely to hurt people,
Right.
you're a dick.
Right.
And you shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
I can't stop you because it's your First Amendment right. You can say whatever you want.
Right. But that Second Amendment
stop being a dick.
is right where it is. Because just in case the First Amendment don't work, the Second Amendment is right there.
Exactly. And that's and remember, and that's why I tell people, man, if that Second Amendment ever goes away or it's steadily, and slow, because think about it, it's never going to be. Nobody's ever going to come out and just be like, gone.
Yeah, we're taking guns.
People would flip.
Yes.
What happened? Look, Canada. People are like, the United States of America is literally the only country in the world that has an amendment that states that your freedom of speech is protected at all costs.
That's right.
Canada. Comedians have been jailed for making offensive jokes.
Yeah.
People, it's ridiculous.
Makes no fucking sense. And comedy is, again, going back to like Joe Rogan and them, comedy should be one of those places where you are supposed to say fucked up shit.
Agreed.
And you should be allowed to say fucked up shit, and nobody should ever feel a certain type of way about it. Now, I get it. Jokes can hurt.
Oh, yeah.
But shit.
Grow some.
If listen, grow some and come back with your own and learn how to fight back. Damn. Motherfuckers don't play the dozens no more. Y'all know how to be like, yo, your mama's so dumb. They told her it was cold. They told her it was chilly outside. She went and got a bowl. Like, what the fuck? Your mama's so dumb. That's why she thought the quarterback was a refund. Like, what?
But it's true though. Like, one of my favorite your mama jokes right now is your mama's so fat. Thanos had to clap.
You know what I'm saying?
And I'm like, yo,
snap. Yeah.
I'm like, that was fine.
That's fucked up.
I'm like, that is so good. I'm like, but there are people who are going to get hurt by that. I'm like,
yeah.
Listen, just because your mom is fat doesn't mean you have to be upset.
Right.
I'm that person that and you can call me a dick if you want. Like, if I say something that offends somebody and hurts their feelings, it wasn't intentional.
No.
But if you're going to go out of
your problem,
if you're going to go out of your way to now try to make me feel bad, I'm going to intentionally now try to hurt your feelings.
Standard rule for this show is if it don't apply, let it fly. But if you take offense, I'm talking to you. But it is a you problem, not a me problem. You have to figure out why you took offense to that.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? That's up to you.
And I always told people, all people who know me say, if you can offend me, I'll be more impressed than I will be hurt.
Right.
Because there's no way.
Yeah. There's not much that's going to offend me. You
Exactly.
know what I'm saying? You have to be really of a certain type of character and a person in order to offend me. And I mean, in order to offend me, you kind of got to be like Obama or somebody. You got to be of a really high caliber.
Yeah, if
you know what I mean?
The only person who I know right now in my life that could truly offend me and say something to her is my mother. She walked and say, "Bill, you gotta start going back to the gym." I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm fat." Oh god, I gotta go lift weights or something.
It's time to live. Fuck this.
Yeah, in the gym crying, listening to
titties.
just listening to sad emo music. Yep.
I think about that Red Man song. You flip and have your balls fat, you hit by the truck. Oh my god.
But
what? Fucked up, man.
But that's people just need to grow some tough skin, grow a set.
Yeah, man.
And now you say that, and people get offended, saying "Oh well,
he's wishing death on his mom." No, my mom's already dead. Number one. Number two, even if I did, she'd just fucking throw her purse at me and laugh at me until I did. What the fuck? It's not a big thing.
Yeah.
But this cancel culture shit has to end.
Yes.
I'm not saying that hashtag Me Too isn't a good thing, but the way it's being implemented, that needs to end.
You got to stop pick and choosing.
Right.
If you're going to I'm 100% for the Me Too movement, but you need to apply to everyone.
Yeah.
You cannot pick and choose.
Especially women, too.
Yep, absolutely.
And call people out for their bullshit, because, look, not for nothing, but appreciate Oprah and them, but she still ain't said nothing about Jeffrey Epstein. About fucking what's that old fat fuck who was raping all them Hollywood girls?
Why can't I remember?
Harvey Weinstein.
Yes.
Harvey Weinstein. Y'all motherfuckers ain't talking about Harvey Weinstein. I don't want to hear shit about anything else that you're talking about.
It's true.
You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I get it. All these things do happen to people, but you gotta call everybody on their bullshit.
Oh yeah.
Don't pick and choose.
Not just everybody who's below the upper class.
Right. Don't just pick and choose who's gonna be canceled this week. Like, no, if everybody's being a dick, cancel everybody. But at the same time, stop trying to cancel everybody.
It is, and I
give people a chance to grow.
Again, as a fence sitter, I can comfortably say too, though, like with cancel culture, like if people lean towards the right, like they'll lose jobs. Like, listen, I don't think if you lean to the left, you should lose your job.
No, not at all.
I don't think your political. I think that
your political ideology should not affect what you do for a living anyway.
Agreed.
Like, but again, this is the social media age, because these are things that we did not used to talk about.
Well,
when I was growing up, nobody talked about who they were voting for.
So in the household I grew up, I wasn't necessarily allowed to talk about it because I couldn't vote.
Right.
So my grandparents, I still truly appreciate this. Until I was like 16, I didn't even know where my grandparents or family even leaned politically.
Right.
Like I never even thought about it. And thinking back on that now, like until I was like 16 years old, and when I started seeing the stuff they said and the stuff they did, like when you start really being able to absorb and see all that stuff. That's when I started realizing, oh, my grandmother's a liberal. Or a Democrat. I wouldn't consider her a liberal. She's a Democrat, a classic Democrat.
Right.
And my grandfather, who was married to her, is a classic Republican.
Right.
And respect the both of them. And my mom is a little bit of a fence sitter. I think she leans more to the left, but that's fine. Nothing wrong with that.
Right.
And as I got older, that gave me the ability to start to develop my own ideals and my own opinions on things. And do I butt heads with my mom about stuff? Absolutely.
Sure.
But, I mean, that's a good thing. We should butt heads with ideals all over the country, but we shouldn't get to the point where, one, we want to silence people because we again, the cancel culture, we don't want to silence people because their ideas are different than mine and it hurts my feelings. Like, who cares? Grow up.
Deal with it. Find common ground.
Yeah.
Like, we don't, all right, you disagree with what I say, I disagree with what you say. All right, so where's the middle ground here? How do we
And at the end of the day, if you can't, then just shake hands and say, yo, it was nice talking with you. Yeah.
Word. Agree to disagree.
And that's all okay.
We ain't got to talk about that anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, until we can find a viable solution for it. But until then, we ain't got to talk about that.
Exactly. Every day. Like, every day I wake up, I try to learn something new. And I am always open to having my ideas and my views changed. Because I could be wrong.
I could be wrong. And I'm okay with being wrong. And I'm okay with being proven wrong. But, it does matter, I guess, sometimes the messenger and the message itself.
Yes.
But again, if the message is sound and the knowledge is sound, you shouldn't have a problem.
And I think you have that argument for a while, like, well, that's not my facts. Right? And I'm like, no.
Facts are just facts.
Just facts.
There's not your facts or my facts.
Ben Shapiro, one of my favorite. Facts don't care about your feelings.
They really don't.
And, and it's just the way it is. And I'd rather you come at me, completely destroy my idea and view on something, but as long as you have the facts and information to back it up.
But then again, Ben Shapiro didn't know what the fuck wet ass pussy was, so obviously he don't know anything.
He was sheltered.
Very much.
He was
that poor young fella. But I love it. You know what? I like I said, again, this is where the power of the Joe Rogan podcast comes into play, because I would have never given somebody like a Ben Shapiro the time of day to listen to.
Yeah.
If he wasn't on there.
If it wasn't for Joe Rogan as well, if it wasn't for him, I think I've found a lot more of actual conservative people that I listen to now because of him.
Because of him. And he's not a conservative. People
no, he's not.
I swear he is.
He's not.
But he's really not.
He has a lot of left-leaning ideas.
I mean, again, his parents were hippies. And for me, like I say, there are certain things I am conservative about.
Yep.
Crime is one of them. But I also recognize that that's a gray area, and that's the liberal ideology of me. You know what I'm saying? So recognize that everybody could be two-sided, and there's no shame in that.
Yeah.
And that's what people are afraid of. It's like, oh, I have to be on this side, or I have to be on this side. No, you can kind of be both.
Yeah, it's actually preferred.
Right.
I'd rather everybody be a little bit of both.
A little bit. You know, because at the very least, then we're all at least thinking along the same path.
Right.
Now, are those paths going to diverge based on individual interests?
Absolutely.
Sure.
That's awesome.
That's great.
I hate the herd mentality. The everyone needs to think
hive mind shit.
No,
Yeah.
like, if you are part of that, and can hurt your feelings, you are part of the problem.
Yes.
And because the people who they attack are the free individual thinkers.
And you're not allowed to be that in this country.
No,
in this
not
time.
anymore.
Not anymore. You can't be a free thinker.
And I think it starts with the education system.
Yep.
Again, which we've talked about a million times already. You know, where you had a scientist say, like, why is it that he can go to a kindergarten class and ask a little kid, like, ask all the little kids, why is the sky blue? And they give all their a million answers. Like, of course, we know the real reason why. But then they go to high school and ask the same question, and they don't care. They don't even want to answer the question. Like, they're just, you're taught to be a robot.
Right.
Our education system hasn't changed since, what, the 30s?
At
Where
all. Yeah.
we were you were trained to basically work in a warehouse, to stand in a line, go on lunch at a certain time.
Yep.
And, like, granted, I'm okay with doing that kind of work, you know,
but I am not.
and when I was in the military, I mean, I worked 12, 13-hour days. I was okay doing that work because it's hands-on. I'm physically doing something I enjoy it.
Right.
Because a job is a job,
Right.
and I don't take it for more than any of that. Like, I want to always progress and do better.
Right.
Because if you have the mentality of taking a position in something where you, like, I just want to plateau and skid by, life's going to be miserable.
Oh, yeah.
And you always want to be successful. And if you ever get to a point where you can find something better, think, like, when I got out of the military, I was medically discharged. I worked in medical when I got out. Did not enjoy my job, and it's nothing because of my employers. They were amazing. When I got out of the military, I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere anymore. So I didn't really have that connection with the people I worked with. So then I left there and I went and worked at GameStop. And when I worked at GameStop, like, I had that connection at first with people, but then kind of felt like, no, I'm trying to push and work really hard.
Right.
And everyone's just kind of, I became an assistant manager within like a year.
Right.
And, like, I was pushing super hard. And this was before we knew GameStop was going to fully collapse. And because it's going to die within the next 15 years, most likely.
Shit, 15? You're giving it that long?
I'm going to give it some credit because I think Nintendo will do everything they can to keep them alive because Nintendo wants to sell everywhere.
I guess that's true. But now that you can get everything online, brick and mortar is becoming obsolete for a lot of things.
If GameStop decides to get into, like, the computer entity where, like, they start, like, taking trade-ins with computer stuff, and
remember,
people
there used to be Electronic Boutique.
Yeah.
Remember that? There used to be Funko Land, Electronic Boutique, and GameStop.
GameStop wants to transform back into, like, a 50-50 store where it's, like, 50% collectibles, 50% video games.
Right.
But, like, PC is where everybody's going now. And, like, even consoles understand that. Like, look at Microsoft with the Xbox.
Yeah.
Like, they said,
Game Pass is available on
Game Pass
PC.
is both. The Xbox, the Series X, if you somehow magically can get one, keyboard and mouse accessible.
Yeah.
It's literally a gaming computer for the people who can't afford a really nice gaming computer. Right. Sony's the only one who's kind of behind in the console range, and again, I'm not
because they're specific. I mean, you see, I got that.
They are a console.
They are a console company. Like,
and I think Sony, because think about it, Sony's even realized they've stepped back and like, hey, they're partnering with Microsoft with a lot of stuff now.
Yeah.
Like MLB The Show, which was always a Sony exclusive, now on Xbox. You have other games that you would never have thought were going to come to Xbox or going that route now because it's easier for Sony to get onto PC using Microsoft than it is for them to just kind of figure it out on their own.
Exactly. And then, of course, Microsoft just bought out so many fucking developers, studios.
Yep. So Bethesda, they got ZeniMax, so now we might get Elder Scrolls faster.
Which means I have to buy a fucking Xbox, although I can...
It'll be on. There's no way, even though I joke around all the time, there's no way that they'll ever make, like, Elder Scrolls 6, which is going to be Redfall. There's no way they'll ever...
Are you sure of that?
100%.
That's, what's that going to be?
It's going to take place in
Hammerfell.
Hammerfell and
Daggerfall?
Yeah, Daggerfall.
Okay.
Because it's going to be, like, Red Guards and stuff like that. And I'm because they trademarked the title Redfall.
Right.
And they had a huge legal battle with this one guy who was an obscure author who I still don't even know what his name was, who had a book called Redfall.
Oh, Lord.
And they're like, really, this is what you want to do? But yeah, it is the title of Elder Scrolls 6 Redfall. It's been trademarked and copyrighted and everything. So
well, I mean, I figured it was going to be something like that, but I am excited, and I figure we're going to get it within the next 3 to 5 years.
Probably closer to 5, as much as it hurts me to say.
Yeah,
I want it now.
2025.
I'm hoping. Well, too, like, not to always get so far off topic, but like, they've already said that, because you know how the Civil War in Skyrim, as cool as it is, a little underwhelming, like there's not as many people.
Yeah.
They're going to, like, 10 times the amount of soldiers, because they'll have the power with the new Xbox, the new PlayStation, and especially on PC. Like, it's going to be intense. And I was like, don't let me down.
Please don't.
I am kind of excited for whatever their new game is.
Starfield. Yeah.
I'm never a big... I like space games, and I like sci-fi.
I like the Outer Worlds.
Outer Worlds is awesome.
I love that game. Parvati's my chick, yo.
I played a lot of Outer Worlds. I went through it. I really enjoyed it.
Well, I ain't gonna lie. What I liked the most, I like the characters themselves were very well written. Mm-hmm. Like I said, Parvati's my girl, but I roll around with her, and the fact that she is a gay young woman and she's a main character in the story, and she actually gets to date her girlfriend type shit. Yeah. Like, that's great for these kids to see, to be able to see that. Yeah, that's like, this is, people are, you know, they're showing you love that you feel. You know what I'm saying? That's great.
The same idea with Apex, right?
Okay.
Apex made sure all their characters, like, go deep into backstory, like Gibraltar, who's this big, huge Samoan dude. They're like, oh, he's gay. You're like, oh, okay. And like, I'm sitting there and people are thinking like, oh, does that make you mad? I'm like, no, I don't care. I'm like, now if they were trying to like force it down my throat, right? Like telling me, like, you know, I'm getting like some weird.
Every time he does a super move, it's pink and
rainbow. And I'm like, and I'm being like, okay, we're getting a little past where it's acceptable, right? Because I'm not going to go around and say, hey, there's a straight character. Let me do something that's out of the ordinary for a straight guy. No, I would never do that.
No,
so like,
stupid.
It's
and
again
insensitive.
Exactly, literally, keep it at the base form as simple as possible because people love when things are just simple. Mm-hmm. Like when I play a character in that game, I don't sit there and think about. If, Gibraltar's gay, I'll never play him. I would never do that. Right. I love the character. He's one of the best characters in the game. And then you go into real life and you're like, oh, this dude's gay. Oh, he's pretty cool, you know, it's nice to meet you. Nice talking to you. Like, stuff like that. Like, video games are very, very influential in today's society, especially in the younger generation.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, we have to be...
mindful.
I think parents have to be a little bit more mindful with what they let kids play.
Yeah.
Because, like, when I was a kid, like, I wasn't allowed to play Grand Theft Auto. And granted, like, and not saying that kids who did play Grand Theft Auto are more violent because there's no scientific.
There's no correlation to the two. No.
And I agree with that completely. There's no way that if you are 9 years old playing Grand Theft Auto and he's 9 years old playing Tetris, that he's going to be way more aggressive than he is.
I'd be scared of the Tetris kid personally.
I love Tetris.
I do too, but I'm scared of that kid because he's thinking better.
Okay. he's like 17 steps ahead.
That's the kid I'm scared of.
He's 8 years old. He's entering a freshman in college.
Right, he's Sheldon Cooper out this motherfucker. But I think that's definitely something we should look into is like realizing like these things are not the be-all, end-all of anything. There is gray area in just about everything.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to see it and acknowledge it and accept it. And
agreed.
Then, actually learn how to confront the issue when there is an issue.
Right.
Not before, not after.
I think that's a thing that a lot of kids, especially now, have a really hard time being able to solve problem solve.
Yeah.
Like if something stressful happens in their life, like it's a huge character changer. So like I feel like that falls on the parents where you need to help your kids be able to learn and actually deal with stress properly.
Right.
Like because a lot of kids don't have that outlet, and then they do get violent. Like not even necessarily outside of their own home, but like they break things and like I'm not gonna say I'm above where I've spiked at controllers and broken.
Sure, we've all rage quit every now and
then. And then you know what happened? My grandmother would come in and smack the crap out of me because she made all
that damn noise.
Now she's mad. She has to go buy me another controller, and so now I have to sit back and like. She helped me realize that I need to sit back, realize that physically exerting myself isn't always the right way to express my emotions, to share. And like I'm a pretty emotionless person. I don't really like let things out, but like it's just...
But we're still human.
Exactly.
And it happens. Every now and again, sometimes you just can't help it. You feel that, you know. This is what it is, man. But, Brother Bill, man, we did this for 2 hours, man.
Oh, man.
Word up. Word up, man.
Doesn't feel like it, though.
I'm telling you, brother, that's what I'm saying, man. Come on, man. But listen, man, I definitely appreciate you for stopping by. And I think we covered a lot of good ground today.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, listen, you're always welcome. Come on back anytime. Let's work towards a future where we actually are building to something better as opposed to keeping this.
We bounce all over.
We did.
I'm one of those people.
Me too. And that's what the Just to Be Frank podcast is all about, because I don't mind where the conversation goes, because it opens the door to new ideas and it opens the door to new questions, and then we can open the door to new answers and new possibilities, and I think that's the blessing, man. So let's get at it, man. I appreciate you, good brother.
Awesome.
My man. For Brother Bill, I, of course, am your host, Frank Starfire. This is the Just to Be Frank podcast. I appreciate you ever so much for joining me, man. We'll see you next time, baby. One love. Abracadabra. Peace!